All right. Welcome. Welcome everyone to Open Ed Live 2025. Let's wait just a minute. I can see there are a number of people joining us right now. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to Open Ed Live 2025. It is on the hour, so let's just go ahead and get started. I'm so excited to be part of the introduction, at least, of this session. It's OpenStax in Action, integrating open educational resources for teaching. We have Daniel Williamson providing a bird's eye view of open education for us. Welcome, Daniel. And we have Matthew Tai offering an author's perspective and faculty point of view. So welcome. I'm excited about your session. My name's Amanda Major. I'm your facilitator for today. A quick reminder before we actually go into the presentation. This session is being recorded for future reference. We'll make that available to you on the UCF STARS repository after Open Ed Live. So we'll get that all ready for you. Thanks for your patience in advance. And feel free to share your epiphanies from today's session on your favorite social media platform using the hashtag OpenEdLive or hashtag OpenEducation. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Daniel. Welcome to Matt. Let's get started.
All right. Well, it's great to be here with you all. My name is Daniel Williamson, as Amanda just shared. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I've been managing director at OpenStax for about 14 years now. So I've been in this space for a long time, and boy, has it changed. So I'm very excited to be here with you all. I'm very excited to be here with Professor Tai. Sounds like he has done some amazing work, and you need to ask him about his pets because I just learned some interesting stuff. You can put that in the chat, but let's go ahead and dive in. So today I'm just going to quickly talk about general high-level benefits of OER. I'm sure with it being Open Ed Live, you've heard a lot of this, so I won't spend a ton of time on that. I'll do a quick intro of OpenStax, and then I'm going to talk about some tools that make course integration easier. So diving right in, we always talk about cost savings as like the big benefit for open educational resources. But really, there's a ton. So if you're a faculty member or an instructional designer, there are a lot of things that are really great and beneficial to you. And I'm sure that Professor Tai will hit on this as well. But just thinking about the immediate and unlimited access that every single student has right away is a huge benefit. The alignment to scope and sequence, the ability to make it easy to adopt, to adapt it to your particular course sequence, making sure you're not tied to just one specific textbook, but can mix and match different pieces. At OpenStax, we try to also make it really easy by providing a variety of different technology solutions. So unlike traditional commercial textbooks where you have one textbook and one technology solution, if you use courseware or something like that, at OpenStax, we try to make sure you have a lot of different choices. And that's something that I think also applies broadly to open education because you can sort of pick and choose. You can say, I'm going to use this book with this tool. And I think that's really an exciting opportunity. But I think one of the things that's really, really important about open educational resources goes back to the idea of the 5 Rs, and that's about retention. And we like to think about it a little bit different around like ownership. This is stuff that you can own forever. So rather than the subscription or, a physical book that you can put on your shelf, this is something you can own. You can adapt it. You can put it in different places. You could have many different copies that you store on this laptop or that iPad or whatever it might be. And there is no DRM that keeps it from sort of transpiring across all those various options. And then when we think about like the digital marketplace that we operate in now, there's no takedown notices. We've had all these interesting use cases where faculty go in and they actually create videos where they explain it all. They put up examples from the book on YouTube so that their students have this offline experience with the course. And a lot of times with commercial resources, you can't do that because it's protected by copyright. But because ours are openly licensed, you are free to do that however you like. So I think there's tons and tons of benefits around OER. And I love to call out this story. One of the interesting things that happens with open educational resources is the giving back. So we launched a chemistry book many years ago, and almost immediately after that, we got contacted by faculty at the University of Connecticut and said, "We love your chemistry book, but we want to teach it in an Atoms First approach. Can we adapt it?" And we said, "Yes, please, and please give it back, and we would love to share that with the broader community." And so the Atoms First version of the chemistry book was a direct customization adaptation of the initial chemistry book that we had published. So it's just great to see how all of that can sort of add up. And then when we think about students, there's tons of student benefits too. Cost savings, of course, is one. But when we think about having the formats meet the students where they are, be the source where they can take it on their phone, they can listen to it in digital audio versions or text to speech versions. They can share it on social media networks or in public forums, all these different opportunities. And also, we want the content to be wherever they want it, whenever they want it. So having instant and unlimited access, permanent access, so they can use it again in future courses, or perhaps if they're one of the big use cases we've seen with nurses is when they're practicing for the NCLEX, making sure that they retain that content so they can use it when they are prepping for their summative exams. Again, we want them to have permanent access because a lot of courses are multi-semester. Some students end up needing to retake the course or a reference for advanced courses. So all of these permissive attributes of open education make it so much better for students. And that's not even touching on the cost savings. Every single day, we get tons and tons of students writing in with quotes like these, talking about how they couldn't afford the $200 textbook, but they found ours, and that benefited them because then they could actually get through the course. Or folks saying, because of this, I'm going to pay it forward. And I think it's just so heartening to see like the simple change of switching out, a commercial textbook for an open resource can just improve students' lives so much. So OpenStax really serves as an organization focused on helping you all, helping faculty members. We want to expand access to high quality educational resources. That's our core to our mission. But we also know that modern educators and learners need different tools too. So we work on creating new technologies, new content to simplify your choice, to make it easier for you to choose open educational resources, and to make sure that the assignment process operating within an LMS is also very simplified and easy for you all as well. OpenStax is part of Rice University. We are the largest publisher of open educational resources in the higher ed space. We've been around since 1999. We actually started as a repository where anybody could just come and create and publish open educational resources. To date, we've served about 36 million students worldwide, and we have usage in about 71% of all US colleges and universities. We also have seen over the past few years a huge growing base of users in high school and dual enrollment, specifically in that kind of sweet spot of advanced high school or dual enrollment kind of area into your kind of inter-level college courses. And then we just this year published our first state-approved Algebra 1 curriculum. So we're kind of moving down in that direction, trying to help students in some of those key gateway courses. We've always had kind of the vision to make sure that we're not just content, but we also provide different types of tools to support students and learners, because we know more and more faculty are choosing courseware and other types of educational technologies. And so if we can continue to make those more affordable, make them more flexible, make them more open, we believe we can continue on this mission of improving access and reducing costs for students. And speaking about costs, so far we've saved students about $2.9 billion in their related educational costs, things that they otherwise would have spent on technology or textbooks over the past, I guess, 12, 15 years now. Our library continues to grow. We now have over 70 high quality open titles available. You can find these all online at openstacks.org. There, you go and navigate by subject, and you can find them all. Some of the newest titles are around nursing. We launched a comprehensive nursing series with 8 different titles spanning everything from intro to nursing to psychiatric mental health nursing, pharmacology, nutrition, medical surgical. So I encourage you to go check those out, or if you know someone who might be interested in nursing, encourage you to go check those out as well. They are all aligned to the AACN's Essentials framework, so the new competency-based framework from the American Association of Colleges of Nursing. So when we think about like integrating a textbook, OpenStax doesn't try to just give you the textbook. We want to give you other resources that can help you support setting your course up. Of course, you get the textbook, but we also provide PowerPoint slides. We provide instructor solution manuals. We have these getting started guides that make it easy for you to help your students get going with the resource. We work with OER Commons to make sure that as the community is building out new resources, that you can find them that are aligned to the OpenStax book of your choice. We do provide other types of resources for students, things like solution manuals. In certain courses, we have pronunciation guides for courses with like complex, Latin terms or something like that. And then we also provide students with this student reading and note-taking guide. These, of course, like vary by textbook. Some of them might not be right for certain textbooks. So I encourage you to go in and check that out. Basically, the way you do that is you go and navigate to the book of your choice, and then there's an instructor tab and a student tab. And there you can see all the various ancillary resources that come along with that specific book. There's also many different ways to access OpenStax resources. So the web view is the most popular. This is where you just go online to openstacks.org and you can navigate to the digital version of the book. This is completely free. We have a PDF that you can download. We have downloadable Word doc versions of the books as well. So if you wanted to go in and actually start customizing, we make it possible for you to get those Word doc versions. We have LMS course cartridges. So these are basically pre-built out courses that you can upload into Canvas or Blackboard or D2L Brightspace. And that will allow you to kind of mix and match. And what it does is it links out to that web view. So it makes it really easy for you to integrate it with your learning management system course. We also have tons of technology partners. So I was mentioning courseware. A lot of faculty members really like courseware, especially in the STEM areas. And so in certain instances, when they choose that, we have partners that have already integrated the OpenStax textbook, made it available. We try to work with our partners to keep those prices low and affordable. They are for a fee. And then we are currently in the process of launching OpenStax Assignable, which I'll talk a little bit briefly right after this. But basically, Assignable is a teaching and learning platform directly integrated with your learning management system. Makes it really easy to keep students and engaged, and it provides all different types of resources I'll show you in just a second. We're trying to roll this out across most of the library. The ones that you can see the title of here, anatomy, biology, so on and so forth, those are all currently fully available. And then you'll see below, there's more courses that are coming online for this fall. Right now, we're integrating with Canvas and Blackboard, Brightspace, Moodle, Schoology, and we're hoping to continue growing that list to meet different folks' needs. What this is basically it allows you as a faculty member or an instructional designer to go in and combine not just readings, but different types of interactive activities, different types of assessments, multimedia, so on and so forth, and then have all of that be tracked within the learning management system so you can see where students might be struggling. You can get grades directly from the various assessments that students are completing in Assignable. And then it's completely configurable and customizable by instructors and designers. It's meant to be very, very intuitive. So here is just an example of like as an instructor, how you might set up a course. So say you're in OpenStax. This looks like it might be biology, I think, or maybe microbiology. I can't tell. Biology. It's biology. There we go. Matt's telling me that. And so you can see the various activities associated with cellular respiration. We have some videos. We have reading, which pulls directly from the OpenStax textbook. And then we have different types of quizzes that you can also pull from as well. And then you check the pieces that you want, you click review assignment, and then you'll be able to actually go in and see, like, here's what the student is seeing. So this is an example of what a student might be seeing. You see the little kind of navigation on the left. And as a student goes through and completes these various tasks, they check completed. You can see how long they spent on it, so on and so forth, so that you can really guide the pathway that they're working on. They complete the quiz, and then go, and all the scores flow right back into your grade book. So there's a lot of interesting opportunities here to engage your students, not just with reading content, but with video or interactives. So this is a new offering that we are working on right now. We've been getting a lot of really positive feedback, but again, this is really just a choice. OpenStax is all about choice. If the free textbook works perfectly well for you, please use that. If you want more support like this, then we'd encourage you to check it out as well. And we'll continue to develop this product, but really excited about this opportunity. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Professor Tai, who can talk about some of the awesome work that he's already done integrating OpenStax into his course.
Alrighty, thank you. So I'm Matthew Tai. I'm a lecturer here in the biology department. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm here representing a pretty large team for our sort of efforts in transitioning our general biology courses here at UCF to OpenStax. So you can see all the names below. That is our sort of instructional team for the general biology courses here, because as you'll see in a second, the general biology courses at UCF are massive. And so this was really kind of a big effort. So I just wanted to give you an overview of how we teach general biology at UCF. So general biology at UCF is 2 classes. So we have our first class, General Biology 1, which is BSc 2010, which covers Introduction to Genetics and Cell Biology. This is what we call a GEP course at UCF, which means it's a general ed program course at UCF. So this is taken by people with all kinds of different majors all throughout the college. And because of that, it's a very popular course. So we have at least 10 sections per year of 450 students per section. So in other words, over 4,000 students at minimum rotating through this Biology 1 per year. And so if you just do the quick math on that, if you're assuming a $100 textbook purchase for every student, that's $450,000 per year for just Bio 1. And then if we shoot over to Bio 2 here, Bio 2 covers the introduction to evolutionary biology and ecology. This is not only a requirement for our major in biology, but it's also a common program requirement for a lot of different departments within the College of Sciences. So we have a lot of students who are in chemistry or computer science or nursing or various other things like that. And so because of that, we have at least 7 sections per year. We're actually adding more sections because we're starting to get big wait lists with just 7 sections a year at 450 students, but that's been the historical average. So again, if you assume using a $100 textbook, which is roughly what we were at pre-transition over to OpenStax, the web book was a little bit cheaper than $100, but the actual physical textbook was substantially more than $100. So that works out to about $315,000 per year in terms of total textbook costs. So what were the reasons we decided to switch to OpenStax a few years ago? So number one is not actually the cost. So the cost tends to be the thing that we like top line to the university and to other people to like have these sort of, wow, aren't these amazing type of figures. But that was actually not the original reason why we did that. The original reason why we did that is because we had an existing textbook, and it wasn't a bad textbook, but it was not really organized in the way we wanted it to be. And it's very difficult to edit, obviously, and sort of reconfigure copyrighted material. That's not an easy thing to do, at least legally. So the number one thing that we really wanted was the ability to modify and edit text. That was incredibly important to us. Number two was better integration into Canvas courses. So if you've worked with a large class where you have a significant number of students on ebooks, one of the big things that happens the first couple weeks is you have to basically turn into tech support for access for the first couple weeks. So like, I had this permission code and now I can't get access. Why can't I get access? I would have 50, 60 of those emails probably a semester and have to take my time to track that down. Number three is the quality of the text. So the biology second edition, which Daniel already kind of mentioned earlier, is a really, really good textbook. It's in a really good state. We're really happy with it. And then fourth, kind of almost as an afterthought originally, and it was only sort of afterwards that we realized how important this part is those massive cost savings. So how did we do this transition? And it's not very difficult, is sort of the big message that I want to get across here today. So we phased in this transition over a couple semesters just to be safe in case, anything exploded. We have thousands of students, so we didn't want to make changes too quickly. We also contacted our CDL department for help integrating the OpenStax into our existing Canvas courses as modules. This was something that I was particularly sort of grateful for, because as you can see by me having a just like blank black on white PowerPoint like I do for everything, graphic design's not my passion in life. So anytime someone can take away the design work from me, I'm very happy about that. And of course, we did what we wanted to do, which was make edits to the existing OpenStax book to make it a better fit for our course curriculum. So as a Bio 2 instructor, just to give you an example, probably the biggest difference between how I teach our class and what was in the OpenStax book had to do with Protus specifically. I teach Protus in a very different way from the way most people do. And so it was very easy for me to just be like, okay, I'll just take part of that Protus section and then just put in my stuff, mix it all together, and it works. And that's really it. It is not a difficult process. And in fact, I was so happy with this that I teach about 7 other courses at UCF in rotation within the biology department. And this was so easy, it convinced me to finally take the plunge and switch every single course that I teach to OER. So across 8 different course codes at UCF that I teach, I'm 100% OER now. So students will never, ever have to pay for a textbook in my classes again, which is something that I'm super duper happy about. So here's just sort of a screenshot of what it looks like to the student. So I have within the modules here, and you can see I have the modules arranged here such that I put all the content that is needed for a particular exam within a module. So that's really useful for staving off the inevitable sort of what's on the test type questions that you get a million times. I'm just like, if it's in the module, it's on the test. And so they can click on any of these sections here and they can get things like this. So this is understanding evolution. This is the first lesson they get in Bio 2. So gives you very clear, learning outcomes, very typical textbook stuff. Students have the option to, highlight things, look up things, super duper useful. Students have been super positive about that. So in terms of results, I have gotten, and all of us along the instructional team have gotten overwhelmingly positive feedback from students. I get dozens of positive responses just from my students every semester, not just with the cost, but with the ease of integration too, that it's much easier for them to access than some of these other LMS integrations with paid software, which can at times be a little bit clunky, to be quite frank. So it's also much easier to assign readings to students. So previously I had to be like, okay, read pages 324 to 415, but skip pages 375 to 390 because we don't go over this. And I just have to be like, here's the link to 18.1, read 18.1. And that is amazing to me. Number 3 is really an equity issue. Everybody has access now. So when we previously had paid textbooks, there would be a good chunk of the students who would just never buy it, due to whatever reason, most likely because they couldn't afford it. So that creates a huge problem for equity in the actual classroom, because then you're creating a structural advantage between the people who can afford the textbook compared to the people who couldn't afford the textbook. So that's a really big thing there. And then just overall big picture, you could see from those numbers previously over the course of 7 years, we're well over 1 million in savings to students. I think we're over 2 million now, but I didn't do the full number crunching with this semester to know if we're over 2 million yet, but we got to at least be close if we're not over 2 million. So that's a really big thing. And just really no noticeable downsides. I mean, that's kind of the big thing is there was nothing about this process that was painful at all. And so the big takeaways that I want you guys to have from this are that switching to OER in general is easier than you might think. So when I'm talking to other professors just around the department or around the university or other universities about switching to OER, people are often giving the response of like, I don't have time to do that. That sounds like a big undertaking. And really it's not. Like for this entire transition over, we're talking like hours worth of work, not days worth of work. And that's a one-time thing. That's not every semester. That's a one-time switch over. And with other classes, it's has been even easier than that at times. So it's not quite the hurdle that you think it is, especially if you rely on the support systems that your university basically assuredly has. So it has a positive impact on our students. So at least here in Orlando, and I know it's a nationwide thing to a certain extent, cost of living has skyrocketed. Our students are more financially strained than they've ever been. And while, $20 might not seem like a huge amount of money to us where we are in our lives, that could be a make or break thing to other people. And it also makes it life easier on the professors due to those editing and customization options. It has cut down enormously on the amount of support emails that I get from students. I have gone from having dozens of those a semester, if not more, to having virtually zero. So those are kind of my big takeaways there. And so I think we're on to questions now, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, sure. There's some questions in the chat.
Okay.
Wondering about assessments and how do you, engage students with interactive type assessments or question banks?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is existing question banks in OpenStax. So in that case, in our case with general biology, we didn't use that much of the existing OpenStax stuff because we just had, 15 plus years of existing activities and question banks and things of that nature that we wrote ourselves. And so we relied fairly heavily on that, incorporating in a little bit from the OpenStax. But it's very easy to sort of mix and match those things.
Yeah, that's great. So you were able to mix and match. There's another question from Kestrel Ward asking about perhaps a link to your OpenStax book because they would love to add it to their SOAR repository.
Okay, yeah, no, go ahead and email me at matthew.ty@ucf.edu and I'll get you that link. I don't have it like 100% handy at the moment, but I can get that to you for sure.
And I saw some questions for Dan that he answered in the chat about OpenStax. So thank you,
I could
Daniel.
recap that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so someone was writing in about what the costs are for technology partners.
Mm.
So they're set by the partners, but typically they range between like $15 and $45. And there's like a whole variety of different tools that are available. And again, these are just options, right? A lot of faculty members, as you know, like having those more robust, let's call them courseware or assessment or homework tools. Not right for everybody, but for some folks, that's what they want. So we try to work with them to make sure that they are mission aligned, that they're trying to keep costs down for students. And so typically they fall between $15 and $45. And there was another question about Assignable. So Assignable currently is free, but next year we do plan on charging. And the reason we were planning on charging is it just cost us a lot to run it. But we are trying to keep it, again, very, very affordable. So it'll be about $15 per student. And what we've been hearing from schools so far about that is that there are certain schools who say, okay, we'll let the student pay for that directly. But other schools are saying we have course fees or our department has funds that they can use to pay for that. And so we're hoping to limit what it's going to cost for folks who who are choosing to use Assignable. I just saw a question.
Yeah, so I saw, what trends do you see in student outcomes using OpenStax versus traditional textbooks? So I would say, so you could give the big picture view, but at least in our classes, I would say that it's tough to know that type of data because there's so many other variables in the situation. But certainly it is at worst not worse. And at best, I think the increased access has improved sort of the rates of students who are really at sort of the bottom of the scale, so to speak. So the students who were sort of not engaging in the class at all because they couldn't afford the textbook. I definitely see far fewer of those than I did before. But yeah, it's really hard to get and drill down at that data specifically just because there's so many other variables. We have noticed a increase in overall pass rates since we have switched to OpenStax, but we've also switched other things. So once again, it's tough to know kind of on the ground.
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Professor Tai said. The research studies that have been run, a lot of them have said that the statistical impact is negligible. It's kind of like changing out one textbook for another. And so there's not as huge of an impact. Where Eddie Watson at AAC&U did do a study and found that amongst students who couldn't afford the commercial textbook, there was a measurable impact on outcomes. I was trying to pull up the research study. I'll have to jump off and look really quickly, but I'll try to throw a link in there. But if you search for like Eddie Watson OER study, I'm sure you'll find it. There was another question about printed textbooks. So OpenStax does have a partnership where you can purchase printed textbooks. You can find the information on our website. We work with an organization called Kindle Hunt, and they actually do all the printing and fulfillment for us. But all of our textbooks are available in printed format. All right. I see some questions about Assignable. So looks like you just want a little bit more information about it. So with each course that we support, we try to make sure that we pull in tons of video content that you can choose from. Most of these are sourced and vetted by subject matter experts. from sources like YouTube or other places. Of course, our textbook, all that content is available in there. We have different types of case studies. We have, like, one of the things I think we have in biology is portrait of a researcher. So like we pull out different examples of different researchers doing interesting research in that field. And then we also build out or source things like H5P interactives. So, different types of activities that a student can do where they say match terminology or look at a picture and try to identify the various pieces, all different types of stuff like that. And then it is directly integrated into the learning management system through LTI. So if you're familiar with that kind of protocol, basically what that does is it means that everything's directly in the learning management system. The student never leaves the learning management system, and then the data is directly synced with the student gradebook. So all that data is flowing directly back. And I think I saw something about security and handling of data. So we do like SOC 2 compliance, we do the FedRAMP or TextRAMP, and we work with your central IT department to make sure all of that's in compliance with the organization, with the organization's rules. So we work very closely with them. They do differ by state, as you note. And so we have to work through it on a school by school basis. The good news is already about 520 schools have approved and installed Assignable on, so it's available at over 520 schools today. And so it's already gone through that approval process. And our hope is to continue to grow that number so that if you're a faculty member at any school, you just have the option available to you. I would for Stephen, I would love to learn more about MARC records. I'm not totally familiar with that, so it might be maybe a good thing for us to follow up on. I'll put my email in the chat. You can feel free to shoot me an email and we can see what we can do there. There we go. I'm not. Rana, is your question that with Assignable that each course comes with that, or each course may have a different set of components? I think I understand now. Yeah, so it's gonna be dependent upon that course. Certain courses, it probably wouldn't make sense to have case studies. So it will be built out for that specific course. Well, any other questions?
I think we got most of them.
I have a question for Matt.
Sure.
What would you say to colleagues who are sort of skeptical about adopting or adapting resources for their own classes?
I mean, this is a question I get all the time because I'm always trying to get people to switch to sort of open everything. And so the points that I emphasize really is that it's easy. Because I think that's really the reticence point is people already have super busy workloads and they're thinking this is going to be a, very long involved process. And the thing that I usually hear is I don't have the time for that. And so the thing that I really try to do is ease their doubts on that regard, that it's really much easier than you think it is. It's not that hard to do completely on your own. And if you involve like instructional designers from your university, it's even more easy. So don't let that be a huge barrier. The other thing that I get is quality. And that really does depend on the course you're talking about and what resources are available for that course. So we're talking about OER more broadly, like with the general biology with OpenStax, it's a super easy option that is sort of already known in the field to be high quality. But when I get to more sort of esoteric classes, I guess, like I'm teaching a programming for biologists class this semester, you do have to do some work on your end, vetting any OER and making sure that it sort of meets your standards. So that can be a little bit of a time commitment if you're in a much more specialty course.
Yeah, I agree that it can be really easy, or it can involve a little bit of vetting, but luckily support and resources and expert colleagues like instructional designers and librarians are there for you. And
Yep.
I see that Daniel is addressing some questions in the chat.
Yeah, we were asking about learning outcomes, and so OpenStax, with every single textbook, there's a stated learning
Oh,
outcome.
actually, hang on. Let me go back. I have that right there.
Perfect, exactly, yes. So those learning outcomes are all explicitly stated. I think they're either at the for biology, it's at the section level. Some courses it might be at the chapter level. And there was an effort a few years ago by Gates Foundation to sort of codify these, like create a learning outcomes library. But I don't know if that work continued, so I don't know if it's still there or not.
Oh, thanks, Eileen for sharing that there's Eileen Franks for sharing that there's a bunch of OpenStax textbooks in Primo. 221 records in the statewide catalog in Florida.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, and Kathleen shares that OCLC WorldCat contains MARC records for OpenStax titles. Fantastic.
See, community at work.
Yep.
We do have a few minutes left. So if anyone has a question, feel free to put that in the chat.
I'm curious for Professor Tai, is there anything you wish you had that you don't right now for biology?
Ooh, anything that I wish I had that I don't have? Not really, honestly. We got a pretty good workflow with our general biology classes. Like I feel like we've got them in a very good spot. I guess really the only thing I could think of is uh more video resources. There's never enough video resources. Not that I don't think that there's plenty already, but that's something that I feel like you can never have enough of.
Yeah, that is definitely one of the things we've heard from our folks, and one of the things we've tried to do with Signable is make sure that there are more of those videos sort of curated. We can't afford right now to build all the videos ourselves because video production was
Very
expensive.
expensive.
And so instead we try to source them. We've also started working with some like various YouTube creators. Like we've set up some partnerships there. So if there are folks that you really like, that would be great to know too, because we might be able to contact them and be like, hey, we have a platform for you. I saw one more question just come in. So any AI and OpenStax developments? Quite a few actually. So last year you probably saw that OpenStax formed a partnership with Google Gemini. So in Gemini, anybody can go and now invoke OpenStax. So you go to Gemini and say at OpenStax, and what that does is it builds on the fly a retrieval augmented generation or RAG model on the OpenStax content. So ask it a question, it will look at the knowledge base of OpenStax and then give you an answer. And at the bottom, it will actually show you the references where it's basing its information. So you can actually go back and trace it to the OpenStax content. We also just a couple, I guess back in January, announced a partnership with Microsoft. And Microsoft is building out learner tools, or sorry, instructor tools. This is probably more geared towards K-12, but basically they're building out this new tool that will allow you as an instructor to say, hey, I want to build a course. Here are some resources I really like. OpenStax will be directly integrated into that tool. And then you'll be able to like build out stuff using the Microsoft Copilot plus PCs. So that's still kind of coming online, but we'll hopefully have more to show in the next few months. And then the only other thing is, I was telling folks that we continue to have tons of discussions with various folks in the AI space who really want to provide new tools for faculty and students. So I imagine more things will be coming soon.
That's really exciting, Daniel. Thank you so much for sharing. It's amazing how fast things are going with AI and how much, how much facilitation and support they can provide faculty and to make their courses so much more effective for students in their context and affordable as well. So we are at the stopping point. We have appreciated your wisdom, Daniel, and your experience, Matt. This has been fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you all. And if we can ever be of assistance, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in once again.
Yep, I'll put mine in too.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing your contact information. So a big shout out to participants for making this so engaging, for sharing your time and sources with us. So it's been great. Well, that concludes Open Ed Live 2025 for today, but we will see you tomorrow. Navigate to the agenda to see the sessions that are coming up. We're excited about a student panel, some global initiatives. It's going to be fantastic. So we'll see you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.